clear, once again, that America is not interested in spying on ordinary people. Our intelligence is focused above all on finding the information that's necessary to protect our people and, in many cases, protect our allies.
President Obama standing by the government's surveillance programs. He had a lot to say during his press conference today. We're going to break down the news tonight with Marc Lamont, host of HuffPost Live and Columbia University professor, and Amy Holmes, anchor of GBTV's Real News at the Place. Welcome to both of you. Marc Lamont, President Obama can keep saying till he's blue in the teeth that they're not going after the average American's emails and phone records. But actually, as we know from yesterday's revelations, that's exactly what they're doing quite regularly. If they think there's any suspicion, they're talking to somebody dodgy abroad.
Well, that's the problem. It's a distinction without a difference. He's saying we're not going after regular citizens. We're only going after suspicious folk. The problem is the net is so wide for what constitutes a suspicious person that an everyday person gets lumped up in that. And then we also learned over the last few months that they pick aggregate levels of data. So when they data mine for people, you get lumped in anyway. So it's a big net. It's very dangerous. And the president was not persuasive today that he's not spying on everyday people.
Yeah, I wasn't persuaded at all. Amy Holmes, just on the point about Edward Snowden, for example, again, I thought the president was a bit disingenuous and contradictory. He was trying to say, look, people on both sides of this argument are all patriotic. The only person who isn't is Edward Snowden, the guy who brought it all out into the public domain. And he's calling a presser to say, we're going to bring in a whole new load of regulations, but this guy's still not a patriot. He's a disgusting traitor and must come home and face the music. It can't all be true.
Right. President Obama has sort of been all over the place on this issue. And let's remember also the administration, they're willing to leak information themselves if they think it makes the administration look good. Of course, we just had the information about the 19 embassies being closed, and we were told why, that they were picking up on conversations, between Al-Qaeda's leader in Yemen and so forth, and, and all of those plans. So, for me, what's peculiar is President Obama on Tuesday on Jay Leno defends the program, says there's no such thing as domestic spying. I agree with Mark. It's precisely that it's there's no difference in these statements. But then today he comes out and he announces these reforms. So I don't know. I think he's leaving the American people confused. And we saw even Matt Damon has fallen out of love.
But the reforms are good, though. No, the reforms are very good, though. The president did make some important points here. For example, the American judicial system thrives on an adversarial process where you have two different sides making competing arguments in the interest of justice. The problem is with the current court, somebody goes and says, look, there's terrorism, there's bad stuff happening. And the court listens to that argument, and there's no counter-argument in the interest of civil liberties. Now President Obama is saying we're going to have an independent source come in and make the counter-argument. We're going to become more transparent. The words were great. I think the president laid out 4 important points. The only question is, will he really do it? Will the word become flesh? Will this become something that we see in real life?
And there's another question, which is, will the FISA court's decisions also be transparent? Will we understand why the court is arriving at the conclusions that they do? That could still be in secret. And this idea of having oversight, well, that's precisely what Congress has been trying to do, and the administration has been stonewalling. And we've seen, certainly with Darrell Iss's oversight committee, that that's always politicized. That the president even calls these phony scandals. I mean, only a couple of weeks ago he was calling this a phony scandal, and today he's holding a press conference announcing reforms.
Scandals, Amy.
Those are the president's words. He was lumping all of this together, including NSA, and saying it's a phony scandal. This is a real scandal to scoop up innocent Americans' phone numbers, yours, mine, everyone. Verizon, we learned about, also to track innocent Americans, their use of the internet.
The problem is,
let's move on.
On top of that.
Let's move on, if I may, talking of scandals, to Anthony Weiner, because he really, to me, crossed a line, because he's now abusing the British accent. And I want to play you a clip of his confrontation with this British journalist. Let's watch this.
I just have a feeling I've stepped into a Monty Python bit. I don't know. Would anything stop me? Now is a rock going to fall on my head? Anything else I can do for ITV? You want me to do the weather or something?
If you can do the weather, you can do the weather for me.
Where is it from? This is in England?
You can do the weather here in New York if you like.
No, I'll do yours instead. It's going to be raining, and cloudy, and gray. So do what you can, guys. Try to keep your head up.
I mean, I can deal with all the sexting stuff, but this is beyond the pale, Marc Lamont Hill.
I agree. Sexting is fine. It's when you abuse that British accent that you have to draw a line. No, he's
terrible.
He's clearly just unraveling. He's unraveling though, Piers. I mean, this guy doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to say. I think in his mind he thought he was being funny and charming. The problem is, I think fundamentally, and I don't like to say this, I think he doesn't like women. I think he hates women, and he doesn't know how to engage them with respect, with civility, with collegiality. He doesn't know how to do that, and that's why you see something as disgusting as what we saw tonight. He's a problem. It's time for him to get off the campaign trail.
Do the weather here.
You know, and Amy, I mean, for him to evoke the spirit of Monty Python, given the farcical nature of his own behaviour recently, I thought, well, that was pretty rich too.
It was completely
He's like a
bizarre.
walking sketch.
You know, Piers, when I watched this, I watched the video, it struck me, I think we're well past penis jokes at this point with Anthony Weiner. I felt that I was watching someone who was, frankly, deranged. He seemed as if his personality is disintegrating before our eyes. There was speed talking, he could barely keep eye contact, he's shouting at passersby, he's mocking his interviewer. I think there's something deeply, deeply damaged about this person, and at this point in his political career, he's just managing the critical phase of how badly does he wipe out.
Yeah, I'm afraid I agree with both of you about this. Let's turn to Bring Your Gun to Starbucks Day. This was an initiative that gathered momentum on social media today, Marc Lamont Hill, where because Starbucks has traditionally allowed people legally in states that allow it to conceal carry in their stores, they had a few protests about that. And they now have the counter-protests of the gun rights people saying, right, we're going to march in support and take our guns to Starbucks. This is the stuff of madness, isn't it?
No, this is exactly what makes the NRA and its supporters look insane. I'm a very reasonable person when it comes to the Second Amendment. I don't want to take people's guns away. I often disagree with you, Piers, on guns. I think you go too far to the other extreme. But when you have protests like this, which are insensitive, which are flat out just reprehensible as we approach, you know, anniversary of Sandy Hook, as we think about all the awful violence we've seen in this country in the last few years with Aurora, with all these shootings, it's absolutely shameful. It's disgusting, and there's no excuse for it. Guns are not under assault. All people want are reasonable gun laws, and protests like this make it harder to have a real conversation.
Yeah, but Amy Holmes, they were even doing it in Newtown, for goodness sake. I mean, what is the mentality of people marching down to their Starbucks, which sells coffee, and taking their firearms to make some fatuous point in a place that's been desecrated by gun violence?
Well, I didn't agree with the Newtown march. I thought that was in poor taste. But as far as the rest of Starbucks in states that allow concealed carry, I have to applaud Starbucks for following the law and standing by the voters who have decided that this is how they want their communities to be organized. And as far as the gun owners, they're exercising their rights under the law in that state. Now, I'm a little bit nervous about caffeine withdrawal and guns. I'm not sure if that makes for a really great combination. But I don't agree that somehow it's offensive to exercise your Second Amendment rights around other people. That's the whole point of concealed carry law.
No.
Well, hang on. What about my right? What about my right as a Starbucks customer, regular? What about my rights to go to my Starbucks and not have to be in a line with a bunch of people with AR-15s? What about that right?
That, Piers, is where the Constitution comes in, that you don't get to impose your view of the Second Amendment on your fellow citizens if your state has decided that those citizens can carry concealed weapons. Now, you can, here in New York City, when you go to the Starbucks, you don't have to worry that anybody in there is going to have a gun. But there are different states with different cultures, different laws, and those people who, on the other side of it, they don't get to dictate to everybody else.
Just because... No, but just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do something. Yes, you can walk into a Starbucks with an AR-15, although it's really hard to conceal that.
What is someone supposed to do who has a gun on their person and they want to go get a coffee? Are they supposed to go home and brew it at home themselves? They can't go into a Starbucks and get a coffee like you can?
No, but Amy, that's a hypothetical that's also counterfactual. This isn't someone who happens to have a 9mm on him. This is a group of gun nuts getting together and ordering mocha lattes with Uzis.
And
that is a problem. It's unsafe, and it's ridiculous.
Demonstrating that they have every right to be a part of civil society, just like everybody else. And let's remember, Starbucks themselves stands by those states' laws and allows customers to bring guns into their establishments.
We've got to leave it there. I will buy you both a latte next time I'm in New York, because we can have at least some confidence that everybody else won't be armed to the teeth. Marc Lamont Hill and Amy Holmes, thank you both very much indeed.